Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Fabrizio Aiello. Welcome to What is Fabrizio Inking? I am inking Thor today. So we have Thor smacking a frost giant. Started it last time and hoping to finish that up today. But first off, I just want to thank everybody for subscribing. Got a bunch of new subscribers this past week or so, so thank you. Any questions, comments, let me know. And whenever I finish this drawing, whoever is in the chat, I will be doing a giveaway. So if there are 2 people in the chat, your chances go up significantly. So I guess that means don't share this stream with anybody, really. Anyway. You know, I will show the pencils to this actually, just to see what I'm working with. Yeah, so it's some fan art. I don't really do fan art very often. I have my own comic book, Horace Hoover, but sometimes you just gotta change it up a bit, and this seemed like a little fun drawing to do. I gotta get my brush ready, sorry. Sasquatch Gettys. Sweet, I have a 100% chance right now. Yeah, so I would say try to block this stream from everybody. Kick them out if they get anywhere near the stream, and this is yours. Oh no, your chances just went down. Logan Andrews, how's it going? Thanks for popping in, I appreciate it. Hoping to finish this today. If I can get my brush to listen to me. I always have a backup brush on hand, just in case it's not complying. Can usually tell pretty quickly whenever that happens too. I'm not going to be too fiddly with this drawing either. I definitely want to feel like, I want it to feel like the era that I'm sort of looking at. So this is Thor gold era, gold armor era. So, Sal Buscema, Ron Friends. That wouldn't be very Canadian-like. No, it wouldn't. But, yeah, I mean, you could... I don't know. You could nice people, you could offer them things. And I'm not even on the screen here. Logan, no thank you. Art on Sunday isn't the same without your videos. Man, that's awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, Sunday is just, it's a good time to break out some paints, some pencils, whatever you do. Play guitar, work in the garage or something. Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm doing after this. I will probably have Horace H. Hoover pages to ink, so I might start doing that. There is always a potential for spoilers, but as long as people know that going into it, I'll give them a heads up that there might be spoilers on a particular page that I'm inking. I am on page 13 currently of issue 4, pencils. I'm definitely putting, I put more and more into each issue. So I just got done with a 10-paneled, I think it was a 9-paneled page. It was pretty brutal, but yeah, I'm putting more detail, and not detail for detail's sake, more detail that helps the story to help the atmosphere as much as I can. Especially since issue 4 is sort of the resolution of the Smoke Man stuff. John's Long Box. How's it going, John? Want me to art critique us? Please, if you could do the next issue of Horace H. Hoover entirely in your snooty art voice, that would be amazing. I almost feel like you went to my school with that critique. I'm like, I've heard that voice before. I know I have. The other reason I wanted to do Thor is I have another story, another comic book, more like a graphic novel than a series idea that I've been wanting to do. Maybe, after the Horace stuff or in between the miniseries and something else. And it's definitely fantasy oriented, so this was apropos of that. I don't know if that sentence made any sense. I don't have a ton left, so I should be able to finish it this time. John, my friend Laura was the manager of the Louis Castilli Art Gallery in Soho. That was the gallery that discovered Andy Warhol. Wow, that's impressive. That's pretty cool. We used to hang out there, and I would use that voice to talk shit about the art. Yeah, that sounds about right. It's funny because when you go to school for, fine, my focus was fine art, so, there was no getting around it. I was definitely surrounded by a bunch of snooty art people that just tried to sound smart all the time. And I'm like, you're using words incorrectly. They would use the word metaphysics. If they didn't know what something meant, they would say metaphysical. I'm like, you've never read real books. You've imagined yourself this position of erudition, and you're just making things up and having people listen to what you're saying. So it was pretty painful for me, but I rarely let them get away with it. She hung up a drawing by me of a stick figure guy poking another stick figure guy in the eye. I called it stick in eye. We caught people looking at it all seriously. Oh my God, that's incredible. That is truly amazing. That is a surreal, but not knowing what surreal means. Or existential. Existential, that's another one too. Yeah, it was always funny to me. But I was, of course, the odd man out for, for understanding anatomy and wanting to actually make something, not just throw paint on the wall and then talk people into believing it's something. So, well, I'd like to say I didn't know what I was getting into, but I didn't really have an option. The idea of me doing anything other than art at that time was, I couldn't even imagine it. I had an art teacher at college that actually took us to his exhibit. Now that was pompous. Wow, yeah, that's... Yeah, it's tough sometimes. Kind of liking fine art, and then you immediately get pigeonholed and put into like a category. But I just kind of like to remind people, I'm like, listen, just because, oh, sorry, one second. Are you okay? Sorry about that. That was the art police. No. My wife came home and I thought the door was locked and something was in front of it. Anyway. Let's see. Laura was cute. She looks like Betty Page. Wow. And I was in photography at the time. I used her as a model a lot. I was taking a picture of my friend choking her with her skirt up, panties showing, hanging out of her office window. When Luis Castilli came in, he said sorry and walked out. Wow. Luis? Man. Do you still have these photos? I used my wife as a model a lot. Yeah, whenever I go to a museum, I just recently went to the Carnegie in Pittsburgh, and I haven't been there for quite a bit. I went for Christmas. They have essentially they have a nativity scene, a Neapolitan nativity scene from the 1700s on display during Christmas, which is it's very, very cool. It's a big draw for people because, well, it's well done. It's 300 years old, but it is still shocking when you walk in to look at this thing, and it's really, really big. It's kind of shocking. Like right next to it, you will have a grid of paint. So it's so stark when you see them next to each other, the difference. And you're like, what are we doing with this modern art stuff right next to these beautifully rendered figures? I've always said that if you need somebody to explain the art, it's probably not. I mean, it's definitely not actually working as a piece. I'm sorry, I'm kind of babbling now. That was my brush with fine art. Neapolitan. Joseph is chocolate, Mary vanilla, and Jesus is strawberry. How dare you? Yes. Yeah, I was actually pretty surprised they still have that display, to be honest, nowadays. It's really cool. Very well done, and just so old. It's almost like I don't want to diminish it at all, but it's like a tiny little movie set, with miniatures or something like that. One of my favorite things. No, it was good. It was a good joke. I love Neapolitan. I always loved Thor's boots, like the top part of his boot. I wonder, and John, I don't know if you know this. That's the only time I ever saw that kind of shape on a boot before. Is there another character ever, or maybe before, that had that? It's such a unique shape. I always wondered. Where that came from. I've never seen anybody point it out before, though, so maybe it was wholly unique. Yeah, he's got these too, which don't make a ton of sense because it's like this blue. I mean, I guess the blues could be metal or whatever, but most of the time it looks like fabric, more so than like a scale mail or something. Chainmail? I think it was from the Three Musketeers. Huh. That's interesting. I thought about that before. I always think of Captain America having those kind of boots, but this clove weird shape thing. Logan, I've never seen that boot besides Thor. Those tiger stripes on the original. Yeah, those other. It's just I don't know, it's really unique, I think, in superhero genre for sure. Alrighty. Gotta move around. I really want to get this done today. Flamboyant boots. Those flamboyant boots and gloves are such a Hollywood thing, yeah. Sometimes, that was besides color schemes, although color schemes were limited, that was the biggest difference between characters sometimes, is the gloves and the boots and a few other little design features. Look at old Hollywood period pieces. They had crazy costumes. Yeah, that's a good point. I honestly have very limited knowledge in those old movies outside of sort of the German expressionist stuff or stage plays. The colors just seem to work for the character. Hey, Easy Comic Reader. How's it going? I almost called you Easy Comic Rider. I don't know if you're an Easy Comic Rider as well. Speaking of Captain America. I might do a wash in the background, but we'll see about that. I'm trying to not go too crazy. I definitely need to put texture in his loincloth, because if not, it'll look very manufactured in a weird kind of way, like he's wearing a tablecloth or something. I talked about HHH a bit with my conversation with Hojo on Friday. Oh, did I miss that on Friday? I think I probably did. I'll have to check that out. Thanks, John. Yeah, if everybody doesn't know, John has a YouTube channel called John's Long Box. Great interviews, reviews of old comics, really good stuff. Check it out. And he's coming out with a comic book called Heroic Tales shortly. Very excited about that. Sort of like classic heroes. Everyone says that my name is from an old 70s children's show. That is funny. I didn't know that. Occult Investigations came up as that is his comic, so HHH was a good comparison. Oh, cool. Easy Reader was from Spidey Super Stories. Man. I always think that, if you're a frost giant and you're just constantly getting smacked around by Thor or Loki or somebody, that's gotta feel not great. You're a huge giant and these tiny little, bugs, basically, constantly beating on you. Poor frost giants. Easy Reader was played by a young Morgan Freeman. Wow. Am I on here? Yeah. If I don't finish this today, what time is it? Man, a half hour. That's gonna be pushing it. Maybe I'll hang on until I finish it. That way I can have I can give it away and start something new next time. If anybody has any ideas, anything fun, difficult to move things around. John, I always found giants to be the most illogical of all mythological monsters. A 9-foot tall I could deal with, but hundreds of feet, the logistics are unbelievable. Yeah, I know. It is kind of weird when you think about it. You know, you had Galactus, but to me, he acted his size, if that makes any sense. They always did a good job of him just completely ignoring superheroes, and it's how I would act if I was hundreds of feet tall. Yeah, Galactus always made sense. And he was always really scary to me, too. I didn't mean to say that Galactus is a mythological creature, but you get my point. Regular storm giants with a society. How do they farm, build houses? Yep. Yeah, are they tending to the sheep, like with one finger, or do they squash them every time they try to do anything? Are they picking food out of the ground? Sorry, I keep getting off the screen here. But this bottom part's getting a little tricky. One of these days, and this is 11 by 17, and it's a nice size. One of these days, I do want to try the very old school size, which I think it's not double this, but it's close. It's huge though. Just to try it out. Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head what the size is. I remember I did cut a page to this size, but I don't remember what it was. You can definitely fit a lot more. You know, the bigger you get. The only problem is when you shrink it down, your lines get thinner, and they could potentially get lost completely. But that was rarely a problem because they were usually using brushes and they knew what the heck they were doing. So that might not work. How can more than 10 of them exist? In my RPG game, I explain how they work out and how Conan can have sex with the storm giant's daughter. Now I want to see a documentary about frost giants' daily life. Yeah, narrated by, Ken Burns or something. It's funny because I always kind of joke about documentaries, and those are giant air quotes, you can imagine. There's a bunch of quote-unquote documentaries on Netflix and HBO and all this kind of stuff, and I keep saying, I'm like, these aren't documentaries. They're just people saying things in front of books. That's it. And I don't believe any of them at all. It's really rare when I do. So I feel like a documentary just about a completely fictional topic would be fantastic. Just do it straight. Get some pretend found footage or... yeah, that would be great. Don't even do a mockumentary. Do like a straight version of it. And see how many people, go to work the next day and start talking about, I just watched this documentary about these people called frost giants. I guarantee you there would be a chunk of people that do that. I think it has to be done. Yeah, it really would. It could get really fiddly, and I'm trying not to get fiddly. Keep telling myself if Sal Buscema was inking this or somebody else. I can't remember who else was inking Thor around that time. Unfortunately, inkers get kind of lost in the shuffle. I feel bad saying that, but they do. The big ones always stick out, but there's a lot that I don't know, it seems like inkers, they would just come and go out of the industry. So sometimes you don't even see them again. They just pop up, they ink some books, and then they're gone. So you don't really get to know their names. Sorry, spinning this around crazy. Yeah, the other story I've been wanting to do is basically I'll call it a dark fantasy horror book. Obviously very different than Horace H. Hoover, but it's been something I kind of had in my head for a few years now. But I wanted to make sure I got Horace, off the ground, the miniseries done before I do something else. It might be really cool to essentially kind of go back and forth. So I essentially spent a year doing a couple issues of Horace H. Hoover, and then spent a couple of years doing this fantasy book. Get a little bit of variety. We can call it Fee Fi Fo Fum. Fee Fi Fo Fum from the Frost Giant story. I can imagine even just a trailer of something like that would be so funny. There are times whenever I watch people ink and they're very slow, and I think to myself, am I going too fast? I'm not thinking they're doing anything wrong. I'm thinking I'm doing something wrong by going fast. It is interesting to me how slow sometimes I see people inking. Like professionals that I check out. If my superhero book does well, I would like to do a horror book and a mythological book. Yeah, there's so many fun things to do. A horror book would be fun. Yeah, I think 2024, some cool stuff coming out. I think that your book, John, Heroic Tales, is different, and we all need different. Classic. I do think that, and I'm not the first person to point this out, but depending on kind of what's going on in the world at any given time, sometimes the art, the movies, the music, just the culture in general, wants something a little more, I don't want to use the word pure, I can't think of the word, but just something good, to see somebody, a character, doing something good. And I think that this is a good time to have a character like the Patriarch. I actually don't want to do too much in the background because it'll really pull your focus. So I'm going to do a little more on the Frost Giant and then just really lightly put in the background. And for the most part, I think I'll be done. I was talking about doing a wash, but I might hold off on that, and whoever wins the image, if they really want me to put a wash in the background, I can, or I can keep it just black and white brush. John, is your book available now? I'm making it a point to support indie creators. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it'll be out soon. The crowdfunder. Since you have a background in fine art, what did your peers think about your comic art direction? That's an interesting question. I mean, I did a lot of just straight fine art, though, so we didn't have a ton of room to do our own thing. It was a lot of, live models in charcoal. So I did very traditional fine art renderings. Later on, I think it wasn't until, maybe not until like senior year, could I really do something that I wanted to do. And I did these, they were more photorealistic drawings. So it wasn't comic book stuff. Now, people knew that I liked comic books. That wasn't a secret or anything. But when it came to the work, it was more traditional. I was really focused on learning anatomy, all the things that I had struggled to learn on my own, before the internet and whatnot. When I got to college, I'm like, okay, this gives me the opportunity to learn perspective and anatomy and all of these things that I've been really dying to learn. So I definitely took an opportunity to try to learn that kind of stuff. Yeah, but I was always the person. It's funny because even to this day, I'll use reading, for example. I love reading comic books, and I love reading classic lit and philosophy and all these different kinds of things. And depending on who I'm talking to, I'm always fighting with them. So if it's a comic book reader, I'll fight with them and say, these Dostoevsky's great, and you should check out Dostoevsky, and they'll think I'm being a pretentious jerk. But if I'm talking to somebody who's read Dostoevsky and I tell them that you should check out the Havoc and Wolverine, mini, they'll look at me like I'm an idiot. So it's unfortunate because I like all of that stuff. I see value in all of it. Calvin and Hobbes, comics, Steinbeck. It's all one big pile of art to me. But a lot of people have a hard time with that. But whenever I was in college, I would arm wrestle people. To me, John Buscema was a master, and his sketches were as good as anything from anybody in art history. There's, I will fight people on that to this day. Oh, John, I can't put in the link with Substack, John Bua. I can put in the link. Actually, you know what? Do I have the link? John, DM it to me in Twitter, and then I'll throw it in here. Oh, hey, Yang. How's it going? When it comes to being pretentious, I can rise or lower. Yeah, I don't know. I love, I don't want to say I love all art because that makes it sound like I'm an idiot. But, like I said, the Calvin and Hobbes is brilliant. And John Buscema is brilliant, and Michelangelo is brilliant, and I pull from all of that stuff, and I think I always will. Same with writing. Again, I don't want to sound pretentious. Sorry. Hell, my own art teacher tried to keep me away from comics. To quote, "Comic art isn't real art. Fine art." Oh my. That is terrible. Yeah, that's the worst. And that's somebody just, no offense to your art teacher, but that is somebody trying to pretend to be somebody they're not, and I don't buy it. Same here. My drawing teacher hated me outlining an object or person. Hey, I was only inking. Jeez, man, I'm really sorry to hear that. I mean, when I was in, like, not college, but before, my teachers were all on board, you know, with comic book art. They had no problem with that at all. I mean, they were happy, you know, we were doing anything. I remember one of the first things I ever tried to do, and this was way above my head. Like, I didn't have the skills to accomplish this, but I was in, I think, 5th grade. I could be wrong about that. And I tried to paint the cover to Destroyer, Kiss Destroyer. And there were a few parts that were actually pretty good. I wish I still had it, but I don't. But yeah, they were happy with any interest at all. I mean, look at Kent Williams. Speaking of Havoc and Wolverine, Kent Williams. I mean, he hasn't done a bunch of comics, The Fountain and Havoc and Wolverine and a few other things. And he does fine art, and he makes really good money as a fine artist. So you can have both. You can do both, and you can see the value in both. If you're not familiar with Kent Williams, I highly recommend his stuff. He's really an incredible artist. Kiss always solves so many problems. I know I talk about Kiss a lot, but I can't help. Every time, to me, they're so, like, they're ingrained in my art, like, history. So, yeah, I mean, when I wasn't drawing comics, I was drawing Kiss covers and the Kiss members and all sorts of stuff. I have 9 minutes to finish this. High school teachers were very supportive once I hit college. Yeah. Yeah. That is a bummer. So what I'll do is at 3 o'clock, even if I'm not like 100% done with this, which I'm like 95, I'll just do a little raffle and then finish it offline and send it out. What Thor needs is a love gun. I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, you know, you had Ken Kelly doing those covers. Just an amazing fantasy artist. The one thing that older art, I don't just say older because that's too broad. Oh, sorry. Nothing better to draw in high school than heavy metal covers. They ruled in the late 89s. Yeah, I mean, album covers were just endlessly interesting to me. It really had a huge impact outside of comics. What brush are you using? It is a number 2 Winsor Newton Series 7. I usually go either 2 or 3, depending. I meant 80s. Yeah, I assumed. I mean, Quiet Riot and Iron Maiden and etc., etc. Really cool stuff. I mean, a lot of interesting artists worked on those. Really evocative stuff. I can get very obsessed with backgrounds, so this is my very deliberate attempt to not do that. It's just roughing in some stuff. Sasquatch Gettys designed a few albums, kept losing the artwork, going smaller to cassettes than CDs. Now nothing really. Huge chunks of art history gone. I know, I get really, really depressed when I think about it. All of the avenues that would bring in people, kids, young people, are just getting lost, whether it's comic books not being in newsstands or places to buy them other than the comic book shops, album art really bringing people in. It's almost as if, unless you know somebody that is going to kind of pull you kicking and screaming, then you're probably not going to find it on your own. It was interesting to me, like, Led Zeppelin was one of my favorite bands, is one of my favorite bands. But I have to admit, I was never a big fan of their covers. They never really... They didn't add to the albums like other covers did. It was always a little strange to me. They didn't go against the music and the content, but I don't know, they just didn't add anything. Same with the Beatles, except for Revolver and Sgt. Pepper's. The covers were passable. It is weird. You know what I always think of is, people always, you should never judge a book by its cover. I always say, I judge books by their covers and I judge people by their books. And I really stick to that. The covers are the first thing you see, but it's also it pulls in whatever tone, atmosphere, color scheme, whatever is on that cover gets pulled into the story. I always hate referencing this book, but I have several copies of 1984, but the first one I was like 15 when I first read it. It was a yellowed, due to age. It had this kind of old font associated with it. And in my head, that just absolutely set the time period and the overall aesthetic of the story just from that cover. It'll always be that. So people they should really spend a little more time. Oh, I judge people by their books big time, yeah. When I go to a person's home for the first time, I always sneak peeks at their bookshelves. Well, John, if you ever come here, you will be surprised to see my bookshelf. All the books are backwards and stacked on top of each other. So you actually won't be able to see what I've read. Now, I've been doing that for a long time. I think that's become a thing. I'm not saying I'm the first person to do it. But, yeah. I just liked the aesthetic of, like, the various shades of white. Because I have very old books, which are yellow, newer books, and you just get this, like, really nice... you know what? Let me show a picture. Why not? I think I have one. Oh, it's 4 o'clock anyway, huh? All right, after I show this, which I'm sure nobody cares about, then I will... Basically, everybody that's here, go ahead and put... I don't know, how do people do this? Just put a 1 or something in the chat, and then I will enter the names. This is a good shot of my living room. So yeah, if somebody comes to my house, they're basically they're gonna see backwards books stacked on top of each other, with a Bernie Wrightson limited edition print on the one side and a Bob Eggleton original oil painting on the other side. All right, let's see here. I know they have like online. They have online little. Let's see. I'll wait until 4:03. So if you're listening, kind of lurking, just put a 1 in the chat, and then at 4:0. Okay, well, it's just turned 4:03. I'll wait till 4:05. So 2 minutes from now. Wow, that looks like the used bookstore down the street from me. Does it look bad? It took a long time to stack those. Yeah, so I'll wait until 4:05. Let's see, we have Easy Comic Reader. Oh man, but thanks everybody. This was fun. Yeah, this was fun. This is the finished one, right? And if somebody, whoever wins this, wants me to do washes, I can. It might be kind of fun to do a wash in the back, but if you want to keep it just brush, I get that too. Oh man. After this, back to page 13 of issue 4. I just redid the cover. That happens a lot. I start an issue doing the cover, and then by the time I'm like halfway or at the end of the book, I end up redoing the cover completely. There's just something about having, I mean, you get better obviously with each page, with each panel, but sometimes you just get a better idea of what to do. All right, it's 4:05. I am spinning the wheel as we have 1, 2, 3, 4 people. You guys have pretty good odds on this. And spins, and that didn't work. Darn it. Let's try it again. What's going on? Don't clap. Sorry. This is sort of archaic. I could have built something better. Oh, wait a minute. All right. I think it's working. There we go. And the winner is... There we go. Easy Comic Reader. Awesome. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate that. Yeah, Easy Comic Reader. I don't know if you're on Twitter or Instagram. If not, go to HoraceHoover.com and email me. That way I have your email and you can give me your contact info. You know what, I'll throw my email, no, actually just go to this. Yep, go to that, give me your info, and I'll send this out to you. And let me know if you wanted me to do a wash or anything in the background. Everybody else, I really appreciate you popping in. This was fun. This was a fun Sunday afternoon. I think we figured out quite a bit and what the next documentary that we need to do is. All right, yeah. Sounds good. Thanks again, everybody, and have a good evening.